Good evening. My name is Melissa Mathews, and I work at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. I'm a simulationist, and a little bit of what I do is train clinicians on how to take care of children with dolls and mannequins and task trainers like this picture behind me, teaching clinicians how to insert very tiny, tiny catheters into very tiny little arteries and veins. We also do some 3D printing, which we're going to be hosting the congenital heart surgery conference in Orlando this summer, and we're printing a bunch of 3D hearts and working with surgeons to train them on repairing congenital defects in hearts. It's a lot of fun what I do in simulation, training clinicians. I love giving clinicians that opportunity to practice before they get out there and actually perform surgery on real children. I got my start as an orderly 31 years ago. I think I just dated myself, cleaning ORs. I was the person who mopped the floors after the cases and set up the OR tables. What was really cool about that is I've been in healthcare for 31 years, and it's given me a lot of perspective. So back then, MRIs and MRAs are angiographies that we get with magnetic resonance imaging. They had just entered the stage. They had just received Medicare reimbursement in 1984. So because of that, they were really only in outpatient centers, and they were used very rarely for preoperative planning. So at that age, I remember this case I was watching, because I used to watch all the surgeries. I thought it was really cool to watch the surgeons cut and sew like artists. I was watching this case one day, and it was a vascular surgeon. He was amazing. He was in his late 60s, and in the middle of the case, he stopped and he said, "Oh my God." And the anesthesiologist looked over the drape, and he froze, and he was stunned. And the circulating nurse started running, and everyone started moving at 100 miles per hour. Everyone was moving so fast, and I really didn't understand what was going on. I only heard the word hemorrhage. And it was then that surgeon moved into lightning speed with 40 years of surgical experience. He started improvising, and he saved that patient's life. After the surgery, I heard them talking. I was very young, but I heard them talking about how if it had not been that surgeon in that room that day with that patient would not have survived. He was able to recount about 15 years ago where he had seen something very, very similar in another patient and knew how he had solved that problem with that patient before. So he had brought many, many years of deliberate practice in surgery plus the experience of that previous case and improvised instantly. Much like Sully Sullenberger did when he landed that plane on the Hudson with dual engine failure. This is how surgeons operated in 1987. Now that MRIs and MRAs are in surgery in hospitals everywhere, we do that before surgery now as a matter of course of business. We get an MRI of someone before surgery, we scope it out two-dimensionally, and we see what's going on before cases, so we don't have very many surprises. But actually the reality is many surgeons get into a case after having studied MRIs and CTs and ultrasounds and find surprises and still have complexity. So what I propose and what we've seen many heart surgeons experience is that when they print patients before surgery and actually hold the organs in their hands and look at them and plan the surgery and maybe even with a scalpel cut it and practice the surgery before they get in, the case goes a lot better. It's very intuitive, actually, right, to print a patient before you actually get into surgery. So what I hope to do and what my dream is to do the hard research and discovery that it's going to take to prove to Medicare and Medicaid that we should be reimbursed for it because it works to save lives. Just like MRI and MRAs did in 1987 and how they proved themselves over the last years, we need to do the same for 3D printers. We need to prove that we should print patients before we do surgery. And mostly the complex surgeries, not every single surgery should be printed, but those complex cases where tumors are wrapped around arteries or where you have things that are impinging on very important parts of the brain. So That's my big idea, and everyone's using a Twitter handle, so you can follow me on Twitter, 2123 Melissa P. So thank you.